So ask for the vote. Call. All in favor? Thank you.
I failed the first test. Thank you, everybody, and welcome to the February 1st council meeting of City of Parksville. First order of business is the adoption of the minutes. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor Powell, seconded by Councillor Beal. Any errors or omissions? All in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Second order of business is that the February 1st, 2016 council meeting agenda be approved. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Powell, seconded by Councillor Beal. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. We have one presentation tonight. Staff Sergeant Brian Hunter from the Oceanside RCMP. Staff Sergeant Hunter, I invite you to the microphone there, and we look forward to your presentation.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here this evening. What I'd like to do is recapitulate the crime stats for the entire year of 2015, and I'll compare the numbers to 2014. And the numbers I'm going to speak to are the number of reported crimes for the particular crime type. I'll start with assaults. In 2014, we had 68, and in 2015, we had 68. And I've also broken down assaults for how many of those were spousal assaults. So of the 68 in 2014, there were 16 that were spousal assaults, and in 2015, there were 23 of the 68 were spousal assaults. And those are partner-related crimes that we respond to, assault crimes that we respond to in the City of Parksville. Business break and enter from 32 to 34. Residential break and enters from 27 to 31. Theft of motor vehicles from 22 up to 33. And here's my nemesis I'd like to speak about is theft from motor vehicles went from 70 to 229. If you recall, I spoke at the mid-year of the statistics, and they were alarmingly high at that time. And I explained that we had made several arrests, and in arresting several of the individuals, they were candid that they were feeding their drug habit and just going into unlocked vehicles to steal anything of value. And what's really frustrating for the detachment and the members and the community is the revolving door that's happening. There have been some individuals that have been arrested several times, and as recently there was an arrest last week, and there was an arrest today in relation to theft from vehicles. And it's just one of those frustrating things. There was a cycle of them, obviously, this year. We are very active, our crime reduction unit and our members out there, identifying the culprits and arresting them. It's just frustrating when they come back and we've arrested the same person again for the same crime. It does happen. Theft from 217 down to 190. Shoplifting from 62 up to 87, and as you recall, I reported that there's a few businesses in town that have hired their local store security to deal with shoplifters, which is great. We need to start curtailing that a little bit more in our community. Mischief to business and other from 107 to 127. Mischief to residential properties, 56 down to 41. Causing a disturbance, 88 up to 100. Drugs, and that's a very broad category, could be anywhere from drug trafficking, possession of drugs, production of drugs, those types of things, from 52 to 62. Impaired driving is down from 5 to 2. IRP 90-day fail, that's the immediate roadside prohibition where you fail the roadside screening device and your vehicle is taken away for 30 days and you're prohibited for driving for 90 days. And you get an interlock system for a year. It costs several $1,000s as a consequence of impaired driving. From 34 down to 22. If we ask for a breath sample and you refuse, it's the same penalty, and we had 4 of those refusals in 2014, down to 3 in 2015. Liquor Act offenses, minor in possession, consume liquor in public, open liquor in motor vehicle, those types of offenses, from 65 to 67. Our motor vehicle collisions went down from 140 down to 136. And the number of written traffic tickets, violation tickets, from 1,441 down to 1,366. And our more serious criminal code traffic offenses, like leave the scene of an accident and dangerous driving, those types of offenses, from 7 down to 5. And I would also just like to advise you folks about our Aerosmith Community Justice Society that we have that works for us at our detachment. They deal with a lot of matters that we are able to keep it out of the courts and deal with it in a manner where we have the victim and offender face each other in a healing circle type of environment. And they've had another great successful year this year. And as well, they do alternate dispute resolution as well in the community, and it does not have to go through the police. So I know sometimes you folks might get some calls from some neighborhood dispute type of things or issues happening in the community. It's an option that's available. It doesn't cost anything to contact Aerosmith Community Justice Society, and they will do all the legwork and groundwork and get conferences together and try to work out any differences that may be happening in the community. I just thought it was very important to share that with you folks. That I think it's an underutilized service that we have, and they're very, very good at it. They have many volunteers in the community that are trained to do these things, and like I say, it doesn't cost anything. So just something to think about moving forward.
Thank you very much, Staff Sergeant Hunter. Does anybody from council have any questions or comments? Councillor Beale, Councillor Powell. Beale.
Thank you very much, Your Worship, and thank you very much, Sergeant Hunter. And you've answered actually a number of questions that I had looking at this, including the query about any restorative justice practices or groups in the area. So that's really encouraging to hear, and I appreciate the plug for that. I was wondering, certainly for me, the theft of a motor vehicle as well as the theft from motor vehicle really stand out. And I was wondering, with the theft of motor vehicle, is this taking place over a particular season? Are there particular months? I'm just wondering if you look at the data and see any trends there.
Thank you. There are no trends with a particular time of year. I don't know if you recall reading in the paper, we have had a real run on Ford F-250 and F-350 pickup trucks are being stolen a lot. There's crime groups that are working out of Port Alberni, Nanaimo, and Comox, and that's a vehicle theft of choice. But to say there's a particular season for it, no.
And finally, I was also just curious, just for some clarification with mischief, business, and other, and also residential. Is this including vandalism, graffiti? I'm just wondering what all comes under that heading.
Certainly, yeah, that includes vandalism and tagging and the graffiti type of things that we see in our community. And I just separated it. It was several years ago. Council wanted to know what sort of vandalism was happening to residential properties versus commercial properties in the community.
Councillor Powell.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your presentation. It's a curiosity, the cause of disturbance. And I've noticed through Halloween and Christmas or New Year's, we had a lot more fireworks this year. And we would phone 911 or the RCMP to attend. Did you get any of those calls on either of those nights?
We did get calls for service related to fireworks and firecrackers. Not a lot of calls. I can tell you Halloween was another great family night in the community. Very, very few calls for service. And as well as the Christmas season, very few calls. New Year's Eve was fantastic. It really is a family-oriented community with all of these events. We do get the odd call, but nothing major happened on any of those evenings.
Anybody else on council have anything? I just have one question. Compared to other neighboring jurisdictions, are these numbers in the same ballpark, or are we above the curve, below the curve, or are we right in an average, or is there anything we should be concerned about relative to our neighbors?
Our crime rate is lower than our neighbors, and it's I don't have the numbers comparatively for the rest of the province, but it is below average, our crime rate here.
Thank you very much for your presentation, and appreciate the work that you do on behalf of the city.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Our next order of business, we have 3 delegations here this evening. The first one is the Island Crisis Care Society. I believe they're going to give us a Housing First update and some information on the coldest night of the year. It's a presentation by Violet Hayes of the Island Crisis Care Society. And I turn over the floor to you.
Good evening, and thank you for having us this evening. I think it's been about a year since we were last here, and so I'm here to tell you a little bit about the coldest night of the year, which is happening again on February the 20th, again in Parksville. It's happening across Canada, 92 communities this year, so it's really grown. And I just want to say thank you to this council, because last year you were amazing, and I hope you're going to be amazing again this year, supporting, coming out, walking, raising money. It was just absolutely incredible. And I want to tell you tonight about the difference that it made in this last year. I think you'll remember that last year, the year before, we had received federal money, and we started up the Housing First program in Parksville. And we thought we were going to get it again. We thought we were shoo-in because we were doing such a great job, but we actually didn't get it. I guess they had such a huge amount of applications that came in from across BC, and so we didn't get the money. And so if we hadn't had the money that came in from the coldest night of the year, I don't know what we would have done. We would have been in serious trouble. So what it did allow us to do is to continue the 7-day-a-week support that we had started. You may remember that we had housed 4 people at that point, and so we were providing 7-day-a-week support with different outreach workers working, across the organizations. And the money that we were able to raise has meant that we could keep that going. So it really has made a huge difference. And but of course the need is so much more. Of course, there still is a lack of affordable housing and still no shelter in Parksville. But I want to share a little bit, just a little story that the Island Health, one of the Island Health outreach workers shared with us, just so you can get an understanding of where they're coming from. And then I brought Sarah along because she is much more with her feet on the ground and knows a lot more of the details about the group. And so she's going to share a little bit about where we are today compared to last year. So here's the comment that was made. As a registered nurse with Island Health, I have been involved with the Housing First program since it began in late 2014. I can see positive and dramatic changes in the lives of the clients we are helping. These clients display an increased self-esteem and quality of living. This program has allowed them to be empowered with the confidence to live independently and close to services. This may not be the case without the Housing First program. I feel proud to be a part of such a program. I agree with the premise of the program, which puts housing first, despite what else might be going on in that individual's life, whether it be addiction, mental health issues, grief, conflict, etc. I believe it is extremely difficult to begin dealing with these issues if the individual does not have the basic needs such as food and shelter. The fact that these clients will be housed regardless of these other issues fosters trust and allows the client to move forward with other aspects of their life. And Sarah.
Good evening. So last year, when we first started the Housing First pilot project, we housed 4 individuals. To date, we've now housed 20 family units or individuals. I'm not counting all the children in the families. I'm just counting the units. So this is families, youth under the age of 24, people with physical health issues, people with mental illnesses, as well as people with substance use issues. We have not discriminated against, we have just worked to help them find housing and figure out what they need in order to maintain that housing. Last year, when we formalized the Housing First Agreement into the host team, so we now have the Oceanside Homelessness Outreach Support Team, 7 agencies signed on, and one of them just had one participant. The local mental health and substance use unit had one nurse who participated at our Housing First team. And now we often have 3 or 4 people attending because they've bought into the success that all these clients are, the support that these clients are receiving. The changes that we've seen in people over a year have been just astonishing. From people able to go out and get a job, from people who can now go grocery shopping on their own because they have the budgeting skills to be able to do it, who come up with completely different coping skills and call before there's a problem, you know, and already have possible solutions, but they're just looking to check in to see, you know, if this is the right way to be proceeding in this situation. These are skills that they did not have, that they couldn't have when they were living outside. So I think it's really, it's amazing as a person who's providing that support to see that type of change and growth in people, and also see the support from the community itself. Stepping in, landlords willing to step in and offer us places now. I've had 3 or 4 landlords say, when you guys need a place, give us a call. And so that's starting to turn around, and they're willing to take chances on people that wouldn't otherwise receive those chances. So I think for us, having that 7-day a week support is huge. That is, the weekend time is the time that a lot of our clients can spend doing grocery shopping or getting laundry done, because transportation is such a challenge in our community. So if we've housed somebody out towards Dashwood, there might not be a bus that works when they need it, or they may not actually be in a position to be able to take a bus due to mental health issues. And so for us to be able to meet the needs of these people and keep them housed, I think is really, really important. And so if we can find a way to keep the outreach worker team fully staffed again for 7 days a week for a year, I think would be a very noble cause. I guess, is there any questions about what we've been doing, or?
Yeah, thank you very much for your presentations. It's heartwarming to hear the results that you have. Turn it over to councillors. Anybody would have any questions or comments? Councillor Powell.
Thank you. Through you to, it's amazing. It is absolutely amazing. I can't tell you how moved I am by the stories. To actually see a vision that's coming to fruition, like, I gotta thank you. It's just amazing. Thank you very, very much.
I have to say it's my favorite part of my job because it's really encouraging to see as this community, it's really come together. Yeah.
Councillor Beale.
Thank you. And I'd just like to add how impressed I was with the relatively recent panel that was held in town, and the great turnout and the wonderful mix of people, and just the positive comments that were heard in there. So, you know, it is really heartwarming and fantastic, and you guys are doing a great job. Thank you.
Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you for coming. I'm just going to ask the question, although I already know the answer, just because we do have the press here. Coldest night of the year is February 20th. It's a Saturday. And can you tell a little bit about the walk and where you can sign up for people in the audience as well?
So it's either a 2, 5, or 10-kilometer walk, and leaves from Knox United Church, and then you come back and have chili. It's supposed to have you have an understanding of what it might be like to be out in the cold, and then to come back in and receive that gift of a bowl of chili. You can go online, and I did hand out the little bookmarks there, coldestnightoftheyear.org, and Mary Beale already has a team. So you can join her team, or you can start your own team and challenge her. Yes, the toque, the scarf there, and yeah, it's a really fun family event, and it's great to know that you're with other people all across Canada for this cause and supporting and working together. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation. I understand Councillor Beale has undertaken the goal of exceeding her last year's contribution. and I understand Councillor Greer is going to make sure that happens. So thank you very much. Our next agenda item is a presentation from the Martindale Residents Association. Duane Round, I invite you to come up to the podium and make your presentation, please.
Good evening, Acting Mayor Oates and councillors and staff. Thank you for allowing us to come out tonight and speak to you. The issue I'm speaking to, I don't actually back on to where the water line is going, but a number of my neighbors that are here, their properties do, and as I'm a director of the Martindale Residents Association, they nominated me to come speak to this issue. So I'm going to go through a few slides, and I'm going to do a little talking while I'm showing them, just to try to move things along quickly. I realize you have a busy evening. If any time you want me to stop, just please ask me. So here's the transmission line that's going to go from the new water treatment plant in the industrial park along the train tracks over to the Springwood Reservoir. Whoop. This is the Google map. It's hard to see. I'm a better carpenter than I am a techie, but I try hard. But anyways, that's showing where it is. This is the Google Earth view. So you can see, well, here's the train tracks there going through. Here's the Martindale residences along this side here. So this is what it looks like going down the tracks. This is my neighbor's properties here. You can see it's quite a steep bank. I figure it's probably at least a 20-25% grade from the tracks down to the rear of their properties. And you can see on this side, it's fairly flat. There's a lot of vegetation, trees that would need to be removed for this walkway water line to go through there, which we feel would destabilize the bank and cause a lot of issues. This is more of the growth and trees through there. Some of them are quite old. They help hold that bank together so that it doesn't come crashing down into their backyard. This is just some more of that vegetation. Some of the older Douglas fir trees that are in there. This is again showing the slope going down. When you get to, if I can use this, here it actually drops off very steeply. So a lot of that bank would have to be removed, flattened out for a trail, and then stabilized on the other side to support that going through there. This is coming around the bend a bit. You can see on this side it's flat. It's been the trees have been taken out of there previously, and on the Martindale side it's well treed. The reason this has been taken out is because there was this is a graffiti, but There's a fiber optic line that was ran along there, so it's already been disturbed and flattened out, trees removed. Maybe I need a little more clearing, but a lot of it's already been done. We have some concern with, with the trail as it is, but having it look down right into people's backyard, we have concerns with the security. As you can see, there's already, stuff going on down there. This is the stake for the fiber optic line with a number to call before you dig. Having been in construction in Parksville for 40 years, I've worked around fiber optics lines, high voltage hydro lines, gas lines, sewer, water, and we're able to do it no problem working side by side. I know Mr. Squire seemed to have some concern about working next to the fiber optics, but it's an easy line to mark, and we work around those all the time. There again is the stake that's asking you to use caution before you dig there for the fiber optic line. This is again another picture of the slope there going down onto Martindale. We feel also because the residents along Martindale provide their own drinking water from individual wells, and there is Martindale springs that actually go through there, that would possibly contaminate their water system and their drinking system. There again, it's hard to tell by my pictures, but when you're standing there, it's a very steep drop. You wouldn't want to go tumbling down there. There, I wanted to point out is some of the old railroad ties that were full of creosote that was left when they previously replaced some of the railroad ties. And this is all up and down the railroad line. They just discarded the ties. They didn't take them away. This is actually, there's some of them sitting right in the in one of the, oh, there's one of my great pictures. There's railroad ties actually laying right in the Martindale Springs. There's another picture of the ties. You can see they've been there 30 more years or so. So we would ask that if the representative from Parksville at the RDN, when they're discussing the railroad, they maybe ask them to use some of our taxpayer dollars to clean up the mess they already left behind. And also we want to point out the scuppers on the highway. If there's a spill on the highway, that's a drain for the highway, runs right into the Englishman River. It's one of the only bridges left that has scuppers like that going right directly into the river. All the new ones have to be designed so the scuppers and the drains actually go onto land into a pit. So, we'd like you to consider when you're there, if maybe you could take a look at doing those. You can see them up here. There's about 8 or 10 of those on each side of the bridge, all up and down, directly over the river. And that's showing you coming up to the train trestle going across. This is what we're afraid our new backyard will look like. You can see the large slope. Level it off for the pipe and the walking, and then they've done some kind of retaining wall here. That's just an example of a picture, but we're wondering, like, how is the city going to stabilize that bank here so that it doesn't come crashing down? Once the vegetation's taken off, it destabilizes it. It puts not only my neighbors along here at risk, but it puts the city transmission line at risk and any future trains if they actually get running again. Down through there. So we're hoping the city will consider our proposal to move the water line to the south line of the tracks where it's already been disturbed, it's already been leveled off. It's not going to cause much of disturbance to anybody. It would be quite a bit further away from the people on Martindale here that live there and get their drinking water coming off of there. And it would be level of the tracks so that it wouldn't cause this kind of a concern. And there's also going to be the concern of people walking and biking along here falling down that bank or over that edge. So to us it makes a lot of sense to consider putting it on the other side. It shouldn't cost anything financially. In fact, it should actually cost the city less to put the transmission line on that side. And we understand there's been a geotechnical report done last May by Golder Associates for the city of Parksville, and we'd like to request a copy of that geotechnical showing what they come up with on how they thought that could be dealt with. So I think I basically covered it all. once again, we're hoping the city will consider that and as an option rather than proceeding. We want it to come into the city early in the process while you're doing the design of the new transmission line before you spend a lot of money on reports or actually doing any of the work, so that we could perhaps persuade you to reconsider that, where that transmission line is going.
Thank you very much, Mr. Round. Are you open to taking some questions from council?
Absolutely, Your Worship.
Councillor Greer.
Thanks, Duane, for your presentation. It certainly makes sense from what you've said and your drawings that the other side of the tracks seems to be a more viable place to put the line. Actually, this, I think, is the first time I've seen this. How high is the tracks off the lowest part of the people's property? Is it like, are we talking 25 feet, or how high is it?
My guesstimate would be that it's at least 100 feet in spots.
100 feet?
Yes, it's very high up there. It starts lower when you come across the bridge, but when you get further down, it's 100 feet or more.
That's quite a height, and I'm sure that would create some problems. Anyways, great. Thanks for your presentation.
Councillor Beale.
Thank you, Worship. I do have a couple of questions. I haven't walked that whole area of track from the upper end of Martindale towards Springwood. I have hiked along some of it and gone off to Top Ridge and bushwhacked and everything years ago. But I'm wondering if you have walked the whole area and the fiber optics are on the south side, is your sense that what holds true for the Martindale residents would also hold true for Parksville residents when we get closer to town? Like, does that differentiation with the bank and the height of the rail line continue? You know, as you get closer to, let's say, past Craig or at the top of Corfield, at the top of, you know, is that also true there, that it's flatter on the south side, in your opinion?
Yeah, actually, once we were flooded once, I had to walk the whole length of that from Parksville to get home there and shimmy down that bank. So, yeah, it is a high bank. But that slope does continue on the north side all the way through. It's not quite as steep when you get closer up towards Blower Road and that, but on the south side, it's pretty well level all the way through. And another point I would like to make also is that if it is going to be part of the trail system, if it's on the south side, it connects up with Top Ridge Park, so nobody has to cross the tracks. So to me, it would be more manageable to connect it up to Top Ridge Park, Englishman River Falls Park, bring it down into Springwood, and then have some kind of a crossing there.
Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm just wondering if we could have a staff comment come back in regards, and if I would need to make a motion for that. So unless there's other questions by council, I can hold off on that motion.
I had a couple of questions, and then we can entertain your motion as well. Okay, Councillor Powell.
Thank you. So, and I spoke to you earlier before the meeting. You haven't brought this up at the Englishman River Water Service Committee.
Yeah, we've brought it up a number of times at the Englishman River Water Service meetings, at the open houses they had when they were looking at getting the funding for the new treatment plant and distribution lines. And I also brought it up at the Drinking Water Protection Plan meeting at the Regional District of Nanaimo. And a lot of my neighbors have also attended the open houses and asked questions and been in contact with different staff from the city directly.
And so this isn't a question for you, but through to the CAO. Are we able to give a copy to Duane for the geotechnical report?
With respect to that report, it would be better to submit a request under the Freedom of Information.
Really?
I have a question. How many residents do you think are affected by that being on that side? Are we talking 2, 6, 12?
approximately 18, Your Worship.
So on that picture there, that's pretty good. So everything that's on the south side, you're saying, is more level, and it drops off as you go down towards the residences. Yeah, not bad.
Yes, Your Worship. This side along here, this is where the fiber optic line goes, and it's fairly level. Like I say, it's been already cleared about 20 feet in, all the way through there. This side is very steep. It's not so bad when you come across the river here, but right in here, it is really steep. And there's actually, Martindale Spring actually comes down through here. So we also feel that doing the line on this side would disrupt that underground spring a lot less too, and allow it to continue flowing the way it naturally has for a long time.
Thank you very much. Councillor Patterson, you were going to make a motion?
Thank you, Acting Mayor Oates. And I'm not quite sure how to word it, so if I could have some help from our CAO, I'd like staff to just come back to council on the whys and why nots of why the water main is on the one side and perhaps not on the other. Is that sufficient? Or you can make something?
If council were to adopt a motion to refer the presentation to staff for consideration or a report.
Perfect. Thank you.
I think that's what Councillor Patterson said. Second by Councillor Beal. All those in favor? Opposed? Down, carried. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank yous.
Our next presentation is a presentation by the Parksville and District Historical Society. We have a presentation by President Peter Kawerau. I invite you to the microphone, please.
Good evening, and thank you for giving us the time to talk to you this evening about our request for a farmers market at the Parksville Museum. The Parksville District Historical Society was formed 41 years ago in 1975. It operates the Parksville Museum, which is located in Craig Heritage Park, and where we have an impressive collection of heritage buildings, artifacts most over 100 years old, which have an appraised value, replacement value of over 1.7 million. We are requesting approval to operate a farmers market in the park again this year for 2016 on Fridays from May 13 to September 23rd from 5 to 8 p.m., which will give us 20 markets. We've recently completed, in the process of completing a new branding for the museum. In our branding, we look at our vision and we see visitor growth, diversity, community relevance, obviously a museum collection, professional leadership, operational excellence, and financial stability as key in our overall vision of where we are going as a museum. Our mission is stated quite simply that the past anchors the present, fostering a sense of community. While upholding museum standards, operate the Parksville Museum to collect, hold, display, and preserve artifacts and archival materials so that visitors and residents can learn and discover the history of our area. We maintain historical buildings to accurately reflect the period in which they were constructed and utilized, and we develop the museum to ensure that all cultures of the area are represented. In terms of our values, we see as an organization, we recognize specific values as a basis for collaboration and innovation. As individuals, we agree that our relationships with one another and with our visitors will be governed by integrity, respect, trust, cooperation, positive approach, and self-discipline, all tempered with humor. Those are our core kind of values that govern the way we behave and the way we operate. As we look at our positioning as an operation, as a museum, we recognize that visitors attend the museum because they're interested in the unique collection and setting, or because we operate a special event on the grounds that has mass appeal, such as the farmers market. Although we are the only museum in Parksville, we need to be very aware that we are competing with the beach and other attractions for visitors. As a result, we need to develop more events that draw the public to our grounds, to connect special interest groups with our collections, provide programs and services year-round to local residents and visitors, create outreach programs to schools and other organizations such as seniors groups. That's our business. When we look at our market objectives for the farmers market is to increase awareness of and attendance at the museum. We need to draw people in. We need to engage a wider community so as to expand the role of the museum in the community. We need to improve membership, income, and cash flow so that we can keep the doors open. And on that note, when we look at our budget for 2016, our costs are $153,000, and we anticipate our revenues to be $58,000. We therefore have a shortfall of $95,000. This is not a surprise. It is the way it is. Museums do not make money. They can't make money. They don't draw a big enough volume of people in with large wallets to pay for things. So we had to find ways to do that innovatively and be creative. We also need to go out and do some significant fundraising, but those are issues for a later date. In 2015, the farmers market received council approval, and we operated it. It ran on Fridays from May 11th to October 9th, and we had 21 markets, and the markets were an outstanding success. Results in 2015, and we compare the 2 years, 2014 and 15. In 2014, our average attendance moved from 2,252 up to 9,829. That was in 2014, which was a 436% increase in attendance. In 2015, we were up to 13,333 visitors, and many of these people had never visited the museum before, but had driven past for years. And that represented a further increase of 48% over the previous year. So our pilot year was 2014. We had a full year in 2015, and we had some good, solid numbers as a result of that. When I talk to people about the farmers market, they tell us we're still in the early stages of hosting a market. This will grow. We needed to give it time to nurture and to grow so that we will see even more significant numbers on site and even more vendors who will fill up our spaces. So we had lots of different vendors covering off a whole array of different food products. We had not-for-profit societies involved. They get free booths, and they are allowed to kind of market their services, become part of our community. We see a lot of interplay between ourselves and other organizations in the non-profit sector. Move on. Lots of products, a whole variety of products that were grown locally, or that were baked locally, or that were including wine and beer and those kinds of products. Lots of people. It was an active and engaging place to be in the summer months. People were able to relax, enjoy their shopping, have some food on site, and get together with the neighbors. And we had a lot of people doing exactly that. It was a very congenial, old-time atmosphere. People said they liked the atmosphere. The market resonated with the values of an earlier era. It was comfortable, safe, and secure. It was kid and pet friendly, accessible to wheelchair users, and people are now beginning to know about the museum, but they still know it's where they have a farmer's market. Eventually we'll get them to actually really understand that we have a museum in there, but that may take some time. During the market, the museum itself was open and free to the public. It's a very difficult thing to charge people to come in as well. It just wouldn't work. And our goal with the market is to get people into the museum to understand what we're about and to try and break even and make a little bit of money in the process. We had several sellout markets, and where the tables were empty or 80% sold out. The problems that we anticipated were traffic flow and parking, and so what we did and what we plan to do for 2016 is the same as we did last year. Farmers Market, this parking lot, which is really shared with the Visitors Information Center, although they might see it the other way around, they shared with us. The museum's over here, the center's there. We close this off during the time that the Visitors Information Center is operating. We have no entry signs here and here that we put up man. We have a person in here to intercept vehicles coming in, and if they're coming for the market, we turn them around and send them over into this parking lot over here. And that worked very well. Once the Visitors Information Center is closed, then this is free-for-all parking, and from the time they close, the moment they close, this place fills up. It's amazing how quickly that space gets taken up. And then we do have parking along the road, and there hasn't been any issues with that. So we saw some real benefits having somebody in here. It's a bit of work. It's a lot of walking around and talking to people, but great communication between our people and people arriving, just to talk to them right away when they arrive. And if they're for the farmers market, we help them understand where to go park. And if they're for the Visitors Information Center, we sometimes gave out information that helped them along anyway. So sometimes to save them even going in the door. So that was kind of cool. Effects on the area. The Craigbain Estates, no complaints. In fact, they walked over in droves. The Chamber of Commerce, no complaints. RCMP, no complaints or problems with traffic flow or parking. Noise and litter, no complaints, but many compliments on the overall appearance and cleanliness of the site. Effect on the museum. Membership has increased significantly since we started the farmers market. We have seen increased revenue. There is a cultural change as the museum is now seen as a friendly, welcoming place to go to and learn about our local history. We have new volunteers have emerged, and we have received several unexpected donations of historical value. The market brings the museum alive and has readied us to move on to the next stage of community involvement. There's a kind of synergy takes place. We're connecting two unlikely entities, a museum with a farmer's market, and that creates a synergy in which the outcome was greater than the sum of the individual components. The museum has stories and memories to share. To do this, we need an audience. And to obtain our audience, we need to draw people to the facility through the operation of special events. It's a yin and yang relationship. And I've spoken about that before. We need to do not only that, but we need to do more of that. We're still getting our feet wet with this. We're still learning as we're going along, and we're discovering lots of things as we go along. We're discovering a lot of community support that people have come to us and said how much they really appreciate the efforts that we put into making this happen. So once again, we are requesting approval to operate a farmers market in Craig Heritage Park on Fridays from May 13th to September 23rd from 5 to 8 p.m. The official opening of the museum and the market would therefore be on May 13 at 5 p.m. The mayor and all members of council will be invited. And we are working on a surprise for the opening, and I'm not going to say anything about that because it's a surprise. So finally, I want to thank you, council and city staff, for your assistance in making our market a success in 2015 and for your patience in reviewing our 2016 request, and for participating with us at our tour and presentation on January 9th at the museum. I also want to thank Heritage Mall for use of the parking lot that they've made available to us. And when I spoke to them today, just to confirm that we could again use it, they said, yeah, no problem. And not only that, they're going to open up the road at the end of Northwest Bay so it connects directly into the parking lot in that little cul-de-sac. They're going to be actually clearing that quite soon, creating a roadway in, and that'll even make it even better for us and more natural for people to drive in and park and find space. There's lots of room in there. Craig Bay residents, their participation and involvement has been great, and the support that they've offered has been greatly appreciated. They are great neighbors to have. And finally, the Chamber of Commerce for their support and tolerance of our parking and traffic challenges. Collectively, we enrich the tourist experience. And that concludes the presentation from the board. Did you want us to add anything, Marika?
Yeah.
Marika's one of our trustees, by the way, and I dragged her along and put her in this chair because she needs some exposure.
It's just that we have great music while we have the farmers market.
That's
you
true.
Never mentioned that.
I forgot to. Oh, there are a couple of other things I did forget to mention. Thank you, Marika.
You're welcome.
For this year, we will have finished our blacksmith area, and that will be open and running during the market. And we'll also have a woodwork shop also open and running during the market, so people can get those experiences, so the museum is more alive in terms of traditional activities. The woodwork shop won't have any power tools, it'll just be handmade tools. And some of the tools will be made in the blacksmith shop, which will then be used in the woodwork shop. And there is some discussion about possibly we might want to get into wheelwrighting and have wheels made, traditional wheels made on site, and that might be another component. And there are a few other things that we're working on, but we're not ready to kind of talk about them just yet. So, thank you, Marika. Any questions?
Thank you very much for your presentation. Sounds like it's been a success story for you. I'll turn it over to Council. Councillor Greer.
Thank you, Worship. Thank you, Peter, for your presentation. You always make a very good presentation since I've been at some of your meetings. I can tell you that I was the liaison 7 years ago with the museum, and I'm very excited about what I see. People are doing an excellent job of not only rebuilding some of the places, but with your efforts to draw more people and make it a better museum. I'm very, very impressed with the excitement and the interest you have. I know we've talked a lot about finances since I've been there, and I'm happy to report that I think the committee is got maybe one of their number one projects now is to raise more money. So with that, I think the farmers market is part of that, and I wouldn't mind making a motion that we give the museum the authority to hold another market this summer.
That sounds like a motion to me. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Patterson. Any discussion on the motion? Councillor Beale.
Thank you, Worship. I would just like to add that the primary theme for our strategic priorities in the city is to maintain or enhance quality of life. And having attended the Friday night market at the museum grounds on more than one occasion, it seems like it certainly supports that theme. It's a very happy place. The vegetables are great, the food is great, and just a lovely ambiance. So thank you.
Councillor Powell?
Thank you, Your Worship. So I just want to offer a word of caution. I don't know if you've ever been near a blacksmith shop. It is I hope you have that building vented, because if you walk by a blacksmith shop, when they melt it, the smell is overpowering. And so I hope that it's not going to impact the market in a negative way.
Thank you. The blacksmith shop is going to be an outdoor area with a covered roof, and there'll be fencing around to stop people getting too close. It'll be gravel so that any sparks that are generated will land on rock. And yeah, it'll be actually away from the physical part of the market, so people have to go to it to see it. So, but you're right. I know what you mean by venting. We did try something a couple of years ago, and yeah, you're right. The fumes did come close. We stopped doing it. So we'll have to assess that, and hopefully this won't be a problem this time around. Yeah, thanks.
Councillor Patterson?
Thank you, Peter and Marika and everyone in the audience for coming and for your presentation. I've been the council liaison in the past as well, and very much honored to be that and to be in the museum and to see the many artifacts and the history of Parksville. What I wanted to touch on, though, is that it also generates employment in the community, and that's something that's not necessarily part of your program and your presentation tonight, but it definitely does bring an economic drive. And that also, you have a ad out for a coordinator, I believe, for the market. And
thank you. Yes, we do have an ad out for a program coordinator. We are receiving applications at this time. It concludes on the 15th of February, and it's not for full-time positions. It's more like a three-quarter-time position. But I'm hopeful that if we are successful with what we're setting out to do, that will in due course become a full-time position, and we will then have 2 full-time people on site. A little while back I talked to Buddy Williams, who was the previous manager of the market. I asked him, I said to him, how many people ought the market, or not the market, but the museum employ? And his view, for the size of museum and the kind of operation of running a museum stand of 3 people full-time would be normal. So we've been way below normal. In fact, we've been at a three-quarter-time position, which has now been increased to full-time, and now bringing in another three-quarter-time position. So you're right, it is another job for somebody.
And just to follow up, that's not just a job specifically related to the museum, but also by having those vendors. And I'm seeing a lot of youth and everything coming out as well. And I know that you are hoping to put some youth and school projects in place, and I'm really looking forward to that. So thank you so much.
Councillor Patterson. Councillor Greer.
Thank you, Your Worship. Peter, you might take an interest in maybe hiring Councillor Powell. She seems to have a lot of information and probably did work in those places at one time. So I'm sure she would be willing to help you out.
Well, I wasn't going to ask the question, but since we're in that vein, is there any truth to the rumor that Councillor Greer was mistaken for an exhibit when they did the tour? Or?
Oh, very good.
No comment.
There's a motion on the floor. The motion is to grant the request to operate a farmer's market for the 2016 season. Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor? Opposed? Down? That's carried unanimously. Thank you very much. much luck this year. It's great to hear that increase. The next item of business is we have an item of correspondence from the Vancouver Island North Film Commission. It's a request for financial support. The requisite information is in your agenda packages. Do I have a mover and a seconder for the recommendation? Moved by Councillor Patterson, seconded by Councillor Greer. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed, down, carried. The next item, we have some reports. We have Acting Fire Chief Chris Norris. Would you please give us some? Mark Norris? Oh, it's Chief Norris. I see Chief here, and I thought it was Chris. Sorry. Deputy Chief Norris, would you please give us the background on the issue regarding the Provincial Emergency Act review?
In regards to the review of the Provincial Emergency Act, what we're requesting is endorsement from Council on getting an extension to the amount of time that they've allowed the review process, engagement in the review process. So what they've allowed us is 40 days ending February 19th, which is fast approaching. And so the Mid-Island Emergency Coordinators and Managers, which our Emergency Program Coordinator is part of, are requesting an extension to that amount of time in order to undertake what they feel would be a more appropriate length of time to review the change, the Act, and make recommendations for changes. So the Act is a fairly important document in regards to emergency program in the province. It is the overarching piece of legislation, and so we're looking for Mayor and Council to endorse a 6-month time frame as far as review.
Thank you very much, Deputy Chief Norris. Do I have a mover and a seconder for that recommendation? Councillor Beale, Councillor Powell. Any discussion? Councillor Powell? Okay, Councillor Beale.
Thank you, Your Worship. And yes, I'd just like to speak to the motion, in support of the motion. And reading this over and thinking about what kind of impact and how important the Emergency Act is for local communities, and it's just so important. So to have the time so that the people here involved can have input and really think these things through, I think is absolutely paramount.
Thank you, Councillor Beale. Councillor Powell.
Thank you, Worship. And so, I was at the Union of BC Municipalities 2 years ago, and that's when the provincial government knew that we were woefully lacking in any kind of a disaster plan or anything else. And so now to come forward and give us 40 days is unreasonable. Now they're liable, so they have to get this through. And so absolutely I support this. I think 6 months extension, because it's a very serious document, and how we put our input in there is going to define how we're supposed to respond. And I think we need a lot of thoughtful consideration about what that's going to look like on the ground. So I absolutely support this.
Any further comments from Council? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Down? It's carried. Thank you very much. Is that why you're wearing red? Because it's a Canadian Tire thing, or?
Your Worship, I believe that may be a coincidence. So before Council this evening is a request to issue a development permit for an enclosure at the Garden Center at the recently constructed Canadian Tire. This will be an amendment to the existing development permit number 1508, and I'm just going to show an illustration that will provide council a better idea of what will occur. So at the current Garden Center, there's this fenced area, and basically there's also an existing canopy, and under the existing canopy a polycarbonate is proposed to help with the merchandise from getting weather climatic issues.
Thank you very much, Mr. Russell. Seems pretty straightforward. Council, any discussions? Councillor Greer?
I just make the motion to approve it.
Moved by Councillor Greer, seconded by Councillor Beale. Any further discussion? Councillor Patterson?
Thank you. Just as the liaison for the advisory design panel, it did come before that panel. They saw no concerns. It's very form-fitting. It's very much industrial type building and Canadian Tire type. I can't say a whole lot more about it. So there is no concerns from the community at large.
So it's very Canadian Tire-y. Okay. So seeing no further discussion, all those in favor? Opposed? Thank you. It's carried. Our next item, Mr. Russell, give us the background information on the consideration of a development permit to remodel the main shopping center building, 826 Island Highway West.
If I may, Your Worship, this is in a similar vein. Development permit 1508 issued April 8, 2015, authorized basically a retrofit to the existing mall. The proponent has now come and revised the plan to basically build an interior, a breezeway, a sort of open to the exterior breezeway. I'm just going to bring up a compare and contrast picture here. I'm sorry, it's a bit washed out on here, but this was the prior approval. Here's the back at Wembley Road, here's the front, and if we scroll over, you can see a breezeway component that'll basically draw people through from the front of the mall towards the back. From the staff level, we believe that it will allow people to access the site on a more pedestrian-friendly basis. If you park at the front of the center, you'll be able to go to the back without having to drive around. It also, we believe, will have opportunities for some seasonal kind of invigoration. You might have musicians playing or something in the summer or what have you that kind of invite people into a more lively kind of space and experience.
Thank you, Mr. Russell. Councillor Greer?
I'll move that we go with the recommendation.
Moved by Councillor Greer, seconded by Councillor Powell. Any further discussion? Seeing none. Oh, Councillor Beale, sorry.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a couple of comments. Mr. Russell knows I was going to say this, that it is nice to see that the lights that are used in the interior area, this breezeway, are LEDs and will save energy. Also, very nice to see that concept of the flow through, and so hopefully people won't feel like they need to drive around the back if they're going to the other areas, and that both sides of the mall will look more attractive. And that finally that there's a mention that there will be some public art component in that area. So I think again that will benefit the community and presumably also draw additional shoppers to the mall and for people to stay in town for shopping. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Beale. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. And Mr. Russell, you're up again. Follow-up report, consideration of a development variance permit to vary the maximum residential fence height at 673 Pioneer Crescent.
If I may, Your Worship, the purpose of the report and the request are to vary the maximum fence height permitted under Section 501.1A and B of the City Zoning Bylaw. That'll basically allow for a fence going from 1.2 meters and 2 meters, respectively, to a maximum height of 2.2 meters to legalize the existing fence. Since the date of the initial staff report, notice has been provided to neighboring property owners and tenants in accordance with legislation and the city bylaw requirements. As of today's date, no written correspondence have been received. At tonight's meeting, Council must provide an opportunity for those in attendance who believe their interest in property is affected to either make written submission or to comment on the application.
Thank you very much, Mr. Russell. And that note, if there's anyone that wishes to speak, could you come forward to the microphone, state your name and your civic address for the record, please? See someone approaching the mic. One of those buttons turns that on. There you go. If you could state your name and your civic address, please.
My name is Laura Tomlin. I live at the residence of 673 Pioneer Crescent. It is my high fence that I am here to back, hopefully. In the letter that I had submitted to City Council the last meeting that they had here, I did stress the fact that in front of my property is a car lot, and it has a see-through fence located at it there. And then on the other side of that is the highway. I do not have a building buffer in front of my home. And since putting the fence up, we've enjoyed playing badminton in the front yard with the kids, and have not had deer or other people's dogs coming and laying presents on my yard. So I've been dealing with also the reason why I'm here is that my neighbor was not too pleased when I had asked the bylaw officer to address his hoarding, I'd have to say. And it's been a bit of an eyesore having a rental property next door. So the fence has been a buffer to not see trailers, boats, and belongings just left for months on end that I've actually removed with my own time and my own vehicle, and paying for it to be left at the junkyard. So my other concern is how the city addresses the tenant of the home of the address that's affected by the fence. Now, for future references, I hope that you might take into consideration that the actual landlord be advised of this situation going on, that their tenant might have addressed the fact that they're not happy with the fence, but the owner of the property thinks there's absolutely nothing wrong with the fence. Now, if they can complain about it, I feel that the landlord should be able to sign off on that actual complaint in agreement, so that we don't have, situations of he said, she said, and unhappy tenants, including landlords, that have to deal with the situation after the tenant has been evicted from the location.
Thank you very much. Does anybody have any questions of this person? Okay, thank you. Is there anybody else that would like to speak to this issue before I ask for a motion? Seeing none, a motion would be in order right now. Councillor Beal. Councillor Greer, the motion would be as per the agenda package that the council issued development variance permit to Laura Esther Tolman on amended lot 13, district blah, 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 blah. We're good?
That's the motion, yes.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. You have your fence. Thank you. That was a dress rehearsal. Prior to council consideration of the following report, I would like to invite the property owner or occupants of 526 Pym Street North to provide comment to council on these matters if they are in attendance this evening. I do not believe there's anybody in attendance for this evening, so Ms. Keller, would you please give us the background on the issue concerning the remediation of hazardous and nuisance conditions at 526 Pym Street North, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As members of council may be aware, there was a house fire on October 21st, 2015, which caused significant damage to the structure and all of the contents at 526 Pym Street. This property has been the subject of bylaw complaints for approximately 13 years with respect to Section 5 of the city's property maintenance bylaw. The property owner applied for a demolition permit on November 26, 2015, which was issued by the city's chief building inspector on December 4th of 2015. There has been no demonstrable action on the part of the property owner to initiate the demolition and remedy the conditions on the property. On January 12, 2016, the city's senior bylaw officer conducted a site investigation and determined the site has not been adequately secured to prevent access from the general public, and there is evidence to suggest the owner and others are entering the site and the structure to remove contents. This is considered an unsafe situation. Photographic evidence of the site's condition is provided in the staff report. A professional engineer has stated the building is presently in an unsafe condition and damaged beyond repair. The engineer's report is contained in Council's agenda package. In addition, the medical health officer attended the site in December and expressed his opinion that the property poses a public health and safety risk, as outlined in the report's attachment dated December 16, 2015. At this point, it appears that the property owner is either unwilling or unable to advance the demolition effort, and given the long history of bylaw enforcement issues associated with the property and the community health and safety concerns, staff is recommending that Council declare the building to be a nuisance and in unsafe condition in accordance with Sections 73 and 74 of the Community Charter, and further that Council order remedial action to be taken within 30 days. Detailed recommendations are per the agenda.
Thank you very much. Any comments from Council? Councillor Greer?
So moved, Your Honor.
Councillor Beal, seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you very much. Attendance this evening. They're not here. Mr. Keller, could you please give us the background on this issue as well?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This report pertains to the same property as the previous agenda item. Staff is requesting that Council approve the use of a private contractor to clean up the property located at 526 Pym Street if the cleanup has not occurred within 30 days' time. This request is being made in accordance with the provisions of the City's property maintenance bylaw and Council's policy on property maintenance procedures. The previous report addressed the condition of the structure on the property, and this report specifically addresses the exterior condition of the site, including the accumulation of a significant amount of smoke, water, and fire-damaged rubbish and burnt-out vehicles. The typical time period for cleanup under this policy is 10 days, but in order to be consistent with the previous order requested by staff, we are proposing a 30-day time period. And the staff recommendations are per the agenda.
Thank you, Ms. Keller. Any discussion? Councillor Greer?
So moved, Your Honor.
Seconded by Councillor Powell. Any further discussion? Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Worship. Directed to our staff. If the landowner does not comply and doesn't have any, and we're going to put it out to, does it have to go out to a tender type process to have this property cleaned up? I'm just wondering on the time frame.
Thank you. If I may, through you, Mr. Mayor, we actually have a person who was hired by the landowner as part of the demolition permit, and our senior bylaw enforcement officer has contacted that contractor, and they are available as soon as we can ask them to, or if the property owner initiates the process. They are available to clean up immediately.
Thank you very much. Any further questions or comments? Seeing none. All those in favor of the motion? Opposed? Motion's Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Final adoption of bylaws. Do I have a mover and a seconder for the recommendation of the 5-year provisional financial plan bylaw? Councillor Powell, Councillor Beal. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. So I'll go around the table. I'll start with Councillor Patterson. Does any members of council have any matters of new business this evening?
No, thank you.
On your honor.
Thank you. Councillor Powell?
No, thank you.
Councillor Beal?
And again, no, thank you very much.
I just have one item to report on. Last week I attended the meeting with the Island Health directors. There was only a couple of people from the political realm there. It was good to see Mayor Tunis from Qualicum Beach was there, and there was, I think, one other elected official there in that capacity. There was a couple of people there that also worked for the health authority that also shared councillor roles. But Dr. Paul Hasselback has indicated that he would be coming to council in short order to make a similar presentation up here. The presentation that I attended in Nanaimo was more geared towards Nanaimo, and the Oceanside is a different animal, very definitely, than Nanaimo. And there was some pretty interesting statistics, especially with respect to his report as a child. But I'll leave that for him when he reports to council sometime, I believe, next month. So if there's no further business, okay, I believe we have to go into a closed meeting. So pursuant to Section 91C of the Community Charter, Council proceed to a closed meeting to consider an item related to labor. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Beal, Councillor Powell. All those in favor? Opposed? Down? Carried. Thank you.